Hello, this short video covers classes, objects and methods in Java programming. Java, in common with most modern computer languages, is what we call an object-oriented language. This means that when we program in Java, we are programming using software or code objects. So what are objects? Well, you'll get a better understanding of what they are as we continue with the course. But a good working definition at the start is that a software object is a coded representation of a real-world object. Java provides a lot of objects for us to use in our programs, but pretty soon in your programming, you'll want to start developing your own objects and using them in your programs. In this short video, we'll look at developing our own dog objects and using them. The first step in creating an instance of an object, or as we say, instantiating an object, is to write a description or a template for your object, in our case, a template dog. Now this template code is called a class. Our class will define a dog and what it can do and some of its properties so that we can use the dog objects in our dog program. What you can see on the screen here is the beginnings of a standard class diagram. We use these diagrams to plan out our classes. And you'll see that the first thing we need for our class is a class name. Now in this case, the name is dog because it's a dog class or a template for creating dog objects. Notice that the class names all start in capitals. That's not something that Java requires, but it's good programming practice to do that so that people reading your program can tell that dog is a class and not some other entity in your program like a variable. The second thing we need are instance variables. Now, instance variables are used to describe specific dogs that you instantiate. And you choose your own variables. Sometimes you don't need any, sometimes you need a lot. It depends on how you're going to be using the object in your programming. Good suggestions here might be the size of the dog, the name of the dog, and maybe the color of the dog. Be good starting points for instance variables here. The third and final element in our class definition are the methods. Methods describe what our dogs can do. Now, typically dogs can bark and dogs can run, so there'll be two methods that we might want to write in our program. What methods you have really depends on how you need to use the dog objects in your programming. So how does that look in code? Well, just a few short examples here. If we're writing Java, we might say something like dog terrier equals new dog. Once we've got our class defined, that command will instantiate a specific example of a dog, in this case called a terrier, and get it ready for us to start using in our program. We could also write something like terrier.size, which would assign a value to one of the instance variables in our terrier dog. Or we could write terrier.bark, which activates the bark method and gets our dog to do some barking. Now we're going to move on and actually look at how we might code this class in Java and how we might use the class. We're going to use the Eclipse program, and we need to write two sections of code. The first section is the class definition, which will define our dog, prepare our dog template, and then we'll need to write another bit of code, and all bits of code or all programs in Java are called classes. We'll need to write another class which will actually use our dog template to instantiate a dog and use it in a program. So let's move along and start doing that. Okay, now you can see on the screen that I've got my Eclipse open and we're ready to start doing some coding. Now the first thing we need to do in Eclipse is to open a project suitable for our dog's example. So what I'm going to do here is click on the create icon over on the top left there, and I will commence a new project. So I'll click on there and we'll get our new project going. Now this will be a Java project, so I will type Java and click next, and the next thing it'll ask me for is the project name, and the project name in my case will be the dog example. Now I can leave everything else pretty much as default and just click finish. And that will create my dog example over there. Now I can begin to write code and add it to this particular project. So let's open up the dog example and open up the source area here. And what I want to do is to begin writing my class definition for the dog objects. So I'll need to start by creating a Java class. So I'll click on my create icon top left again, but this time instead of project I will click class. And now it's asking me for a few things here. The only thing I need to really put in is a class name, and I'll call it dog because that was the class name that I chose on, and then click finish, and it will begin my dog class. Now as we work through this, there'll be some things which will be quite new to you, and some stuff that you might not fully understand at this stage. Don't worry about that so much, just follow along as best you can, and you'll get a bit of a feel for things as we go. Now you'll notice that Eclipse has given me the first line of my class here, public class dog, and I can use that as a starting point. Now what I need to do first is import the packages that I need for this particular class. Java provides a lot of stuff for you to use, but most of what we like to use in Java is stored in packages, and we need to import those packages to make the appropriate features of the language available to us. So I'll begin by importing a package called java.awt.start. Now this particular package has a lot of stuff in it to do with displaying things in Windows on the screen. AWT stands for the Abstract Windows Toolkit. So I'll put that there first, and that gives me the stuff I need to display things on the window. Now, or in a window. Now let's begin programming. I like to put the curly brackets like that rather than the way Eclipse prefers them, so I'll just move that to there. Curly brackets are used in Java to divide your code up into blocks, logical blocks. So that's just what that's about. Now, the first thing we need to do is to look at our instance variables. Now, I'm not going to actually be using any in this, but we'll create a couple just to give you an idea of how that might happen. Now, the first variable that we had here was the size, and that's an integer, just a number. So I'll put int size. So that gets a variable called size, which we can use to give the size of our dogs. Another thing we had there was the name of the dog. So I'll say string name. String is just a string of characters. So that's a couple of instance variables that we might want to use in our programming a little bit later on. Okay, now the last thing that we need in our class definition are the methods. So let's start with some methods. Now I'll just write one method to get us started here, and that is a method to do some barking. So what we need to put here is public void. Now don't worry about the word void at this stage. Bark. And bark is going, in our case, to display something on the screen. So I'll need to say public void bark graphics G. G is the name of the graphics window that we're going to be displaying things on. And curly bracket. And we are now going to actually get the barking to appear on the screen. So I'll put g.drawString. Now g.drawString just says put this string of characters on my graphics window G. Okay, and what I'm going to put there is woof, 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 etc., etc., and close quote. So that will display those three words on the screen. Probably need a capital W there, don't I? Sorry about that. Cool. Now Eclipse is asking me for a couple of arguments. Now these are just numbers which tell Eclipse where on the screen to place my characters. 50 pixels across and 50 pixels down will be fine. And that's my method. So now I have a bark method which I can use with my dog. Now the next thing we need is a class. Now every Java program is called a class, we'll get used to that, but I need another class which is going to actually make use of the dog method. So let's go back and create another class, and this particular class is also going to be in the dog example. I'll leave the default package there, and this one will be, I'll just give it a name. I'll call it the master class because I can't think of anything else to call it, but this is going to be the master because it's going to actually use the dog class to instantiate a dog object for me and then get it to do a few things for me. So I'll just put that name in, click finish, and Java starts again. Now, once again, we need to import some packages. Now here, I want to import that java.awt.star package. So that's one package I'd like to install, but I'd also like to import another package called the applet package, and that's because we're going to be writing an applet, which is a way of writing a little program which is designed to run within a web page, and that's how we're going to be displaying our Java program. So there we have our public class master. Now we've got our class master. This class is actually going to be an applet, so it's going to be a subset, if you like, of the applet class. So what we need to do is add a little instruction in here which says that this is going to be an applet. So I'll say extends applet, which means that this class that I'm writing is going to be an extension or an example of an applet. Okay, so let's start working with this. Now, first up, let's instantiate a dog. So we'll say dog beagle equals new dog. Now this is the command that we saw on the PowerPoint, and that has the effect of instantiating or creating, if you like, a dog object which is called a beagle. Okay, so we've actually just instantiated a beagle based on our dog class definition. Now let's get our beagle to do things. We are going to need to put semicolon there, sorry. Okay, so let's get the dog to do something. We'll get the dog to do some barking. So let's say paint. Now this is going to be displayed on a screen, so I'll need to put a paint command in there, and I'll need to spell graphics correctly. And what's going to happen is that it's going to bark. So we need to start a new block here, and we need to say beagle.bark. And that will get our beagle to bark for us. A little bit of tidying up with some blank lines. Okay, so we've got here a bit of code which will actually instantiate a beagle and then get our beagle to bark. So let's see how that goes. Let's run that. We'll use the run icon, and it runs the program, and it throws up a little window which has appeared on my other screen. So I'll move it across here for you, and it says woof, woof, woof. So our beagle is now barking. Now the good thing is that using this type of program we can actually make changes to our class definition for the dog, and that will flow through to all the places where that dog is used without mucking up any of our programs. So let's go back to our dog and say, right, well, we'd also like our dog to be able to run. So how are we going to do that? Well, we'll write a new method. So we'll write public void run graphics G, and then we'll do our run method, draw string, and run. Okay, something like that, and I'll just place that on the screen in a different place to the other one, otherwise it'll write over the top of it. And now I've created my new method. Now I can go back to my original program, and then I can say, right, well, in addition to barking, I want my beagle to run. And when we run that, we will find that our beagle goes woof, 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 and run, run, run. So there we have some code which defines or a template for a dog, instantiates a dog, and then gets our dog doing things. Now, you might want to follow along with this and type that code out yourself and maybe add some other methods for your dog. You might want to have a terrier and you might want it to bark and yap or sleep or do some other things. So add a few methods in and use those methods. Have a bit of fun.